Hello and welcome to Movie Theater Time Machine's lobby. So today we have a very special treat for you guys. Joining me on my left is my buddy Bill, one of the great historians of the Titanic. And with the Titanic's 25th anniversary coming out, I wanted to be able to talk with him to have some good conversation. What was great about the movie, what was not accurate at all. Spoilers, we're probably going to talk about that more. And why should we really still care about the Titanic crash? So we're gonna Bill, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on Movie Theater Time Machine, sir. Thank you for taking the time with us.
Great honor to be here with you, Nick. It's a great movie, and I appreciate you thinking about it and bringing it on your awesome show.
Yeah, I mean, Titanic was one of those movies that I myself I brought it. I bring it up, and not only because of a mutual friend of ours who said, "Hey, maybe you might want to review this." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, we could do that." But bringing you on there really allows us to dissect the movie the way I would like to see it. Because there's the original movie, which I believe was in the 50s, was a Titanic movie.
There's been about 5 or 6, but
Yeah,
the 53 A Night to Remember was one of the best.
A Night to Remember is one that I remember a lot, and not only with the band playing as the ship went down, how it was more about the ship and less about two people. And
I call this one Jack and Rose on the Love Boat.
mm-hmm.
So that's one way I differentiate between the two.
So why do you think, as far as a movie goes, why do you think they made this more of a love story at the time more than a historical thing about the Titanic? Because it also seemed like they could have done a historical movie and still done very well.
Titanic was one of those things where it was on the headlines when it sank in 1912. But about 3 years later, the Lusitania went down and World War I started.
Right.
After World War I, Titanic sort of made its way to the back pages. And then we had the Great Depression, and then we had World War II, and then it was mostly forgotten or put on the very back page for many, many years. Walter Lord decided to write the book, A Night to Remember. Fantastic book. A large portion of Titanic enthusiasts picked up a love for the ship and the story based on his book. And he went to the survivors and he sort of put postcards down with all their different points, and he lined them up with everybody else's so that he had a timeline of what was happening on the ship. And so James Cameron, according to the story, was watching the National Geographic, when they discovered the Titanic. They had the big Ballard special about the discovery. And he said this would be a great background for an immense motion picture. Now, everything that Cameron works on, the quality is like 128%.
Yeah.
Of the next competitor. It's just so vivid and intense and vibrant. So how do you make a story like a ship sinking with 1,496 people dying into a vibrant movie that people wanted to see? So he had to make a love story. And I've heard it recently compared to some of the great Shakespearean tragedies where the main star saves the girl. But at the end, well, if you haven't seen Titanic now, this is not a spoiler, okay?
Honestly, I mean, we review the movies like people have seen this. If you haven't seen it, just shut the thing off and watch it. If you have the 2 VHS tapes, go ahead.
Absolutely. Sure. But we know what happens at the end, and that's the only way it could have ended. That's the only way a great tragedy ends. And, we've been trained with Hamlet and Macbeth and even Romeo and Juliet, where both of them didn't survive. And this will go down as one of those great ones. Now, while we're in the lobby, I'm going to say this. One of the worst things to happen to great cinema is that they brought them out on DVD so people watch them on this little bitty box in their house.
I agree with you.
You can't
Yeah,
see
yeah,
Close Encounters,
yeah,
Jurassic Park, Jaws, Titanic. There's a
yeah,
thousand movies that looking on that little bitty box across the room
yeah.
is nothing until you see it on a big screen. When the
Or
T-Rex in
yeah,
Jurassic Park gets in your face and his
right.
roar shakes your seat,
Yeah, I agree
there's
with you
nothing
there,
like that.
and yeah, I will one up a little bit on there. I don't usually do that, but I'd say really even watching it on your cell phone
Oh, it's even
is not the same at all. I
totally
agree
agree.
with you. Yeah, I
Totally
agree.
agree with
I
you.
agree. So I mean, there's a lot with Titanic that the movie versus the event that's inaccurate. But one of the things that came up when I was talking to people about this, and something that came up to me that I didn't even think of, one of the criticisms is Jack's language. You hear Leonardo DiCaprio at a couple times say, "Oh, we don't care with that shit." Like, and he'll swear a lot more, and it's thought of at that time that he wouldn't have done that. Like the real Jack wouldn't have done that. Do you think that's true? Like there were more gentlemanly thing. I mean, he was a third class. He was a third class passenger too.
I don't know if it would have
Yeah,
been to the extreme that it was done there. There
yeah,
might have been a word, but not every other, not a
yeah,
high frequency. When she's going down and she looks up at Lovejoy and she pops the finger, I
yeah.
didn't do that. I pretended to for your viewers at home.
That's fine.
She would not, as a first class lady, have flipped a bird. I'm sorry, she would not have done
No,
that.
I mean, I agree with that. Even Kate Winslet has said that years later that her portrayal as Rose, that some things wouldn't have been the same. And my sister was one even saying for years now that there were some things that wouldn't have been different, or just the time, in late 90s cinema, where it's like you had to have that edge in order to get, or some parts of it. Now, I told you this separately, but I do want to say for the viewers is one of the things that's always a funny family story. My sister was right at the right age for this. I had seen this in the theater once myself, and I got to agree with you. It is a much better theater experience. But my sister was one with a group of her friends that anytime Titanic fell off the top spot, her and her friends would go to the movies and watch it again to give it money to push it back up. And, one thing, I know she wasn't alone in this at all. I mean, have you heard about super fandom in that for this movie?
I was teaching high
Particularly,
school in
yeah,
a high school of about 1,000 students. And one of mine walks in and said, "Coach, how many times have you seen Titanic?" And it was still at the movie theater, like you're talking about.
yeah.
I'd seen it a few times, and I said, "This many, so many." She said, "We're going again tonight. It's my 28th time. I just love Leo. I cry every time Jack dies." Oh, and I'm going, it's March. This thing has only been out a couple of months, and she's already seen it 27 times. That's a lot of time to put in a movie theater right there. And just
Yeah,
like you said, they
yeah.
got to go back. They liked Leonardo DiCaprio.
I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio is a fantastic actor, and in my opinion, he's one of the tops of the league. And I think he's very underrated, in my opinion. I mean, he's one of the last few movie stars that we have for people who want to go out and see a movie.
According to the reports, Cameron fought for DiCaprio.
He did,
The movie execs wanted somebody else. And you
right?
know who they wanted?
Oh man, I don't know who.
All right, all right, all right. We've got to get on a lifeboat pretty quick now. All right, all right, all right.
You kidding me?
Matthew
You
McConaughey was one
kidding?
of the first picks for Jack.
Yeah.
I know my impression was horrible, but the choice of
We got
words.
it though. We got it. We got it. I mean, like, no, man, I'm not a sinner at
There you,
all. man, I just got to go ahead and get something, man. And that girl I was just spitting with her, man. Oh man, oh dang, 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 dang.
I like McConaughey in Sahara. I
Yeah,
thought he did a good job in that. But um, there's a choice of about 7 or 8 different actresses that
yeah,
were considered for Rose
yeah.
before Kate was chosen. One was Nicole Kidman, one was Keira Knightley.
Not bad.
There were several of those
Yeah,
that could have done a very good job, but Winslet, Cameron was good and
yeah,
picked the magical team. He
yeah.
picked the right team.
She did embody that very well, and there most times that, and I believe you kind of look at it. It's like a duo. Like we were watching, and this is a thing that probably isn't that popular to say, but we were watching. I was at my parents' house, and we were watching old episodes of the Cosby Show. And I watch it for the ensemble for that. And we've trashed Bill Cosby on the show a lot. So, but it's for the ensemble people. And my dad said, you look at Felicia Rashad and him and you swear they were married. And you look
There
at,
is a magic
yeah,
mash. You put those characters together.
yes,
They
yes.
can't repeat that with
No,
anybody else. It
that's, yeah,
was the magic of that group together,
yeah.
the
It's
ensemble.
the ensemble
Totally
that you
agree.
watch it and you almost feel it's real. And I mean, you look at Jack and Rose, and you look at Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio, and you swear they're real. And even Billy Zane, who plays one of
Great bad guy. Great
the
bad guy. You almost
yeah.
felt sorry for him at times.
At times, yes. At times, and I mean now Bill here. I mean, you have a very big history with Titanic, and you raised one of the biggest pieces of Titanic and had a part in the discovery, which is right behind him for the visual people who are watching this on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is
Um,
outstanding. Can you please go into that story? How did you get involved with that?
I started reading A Night to Remember, and this was in the mid 70s. So we're talking 47, 48 years ago. And it just, the more I read it, the more I wanted to read about it. And one of the things that made me curious was that there was a survivor named Constance Willard, same last name as mine.
Yeah.
Nobody in my family knew of any connection to Titanic. So it's just cool that we had the same last name. So as things progressed, I went out to the wreck site as an observer for the 1996 expedition. I was invited out there, and they attempted to raise the big piece. That's what's behind me. It's what it's called. And due to technology failures, not human failures as much as technology failures, they were not able to raise it. I met the important people with some discussion with them over the next 6 months. I offered to build a remote camera system like in the movie Titanic. Mine is smaller. Mine is the smallest ROV that's been down to the wreck even now. So that's what happened in 98. I went back as a participant. Our camera system went down. It was the first of 3 planned expeditions. First time we were going to test it, get it to working, make sure everything was right. And then in 2000, and then in 2002, we were going to have more advanced plans. We were going to go inside and get incredible footage. And then the third one, we were going to actually try to do some retrieval from inside, tag objects, hook them up, do something. We were going to work on a plan to bring up some things from the interior. So that's how I got involved. About 2018 or 2019, I was addicted to something. I was addicted to ancestry.com. I'm sorry. Once I got started on that, I've been working on it about a half an hour, but the clock says 3.5 hours.
Right.
And I said, well, I'm going to
I did
do
that
something.
myself. Yeah.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Look at everything that I've done so far.
Yeah.
So I decided to do a few things. I started Constance Willard's tree on my site. Constance Willard. I found her father's parents. Now, Constance never married. She never had any children, so she had no descendants per se.
Right.
So I followed her father's genetic line, Willard. And she was from Horsmonden, Kent in England. And that's where my tree was from. I know my Willard line is from Horsmonden, Kent. So I thought, time out. So I started doing some, some super analysis, and I found that we have a common ancestor. So technically, I'm about a 9th generation descendant. I'm a family member. I'm a cousin. And that was cool. That was interesting. Constance Willard was buried. She was entombed in California when she died, having no family. They put her there. And her brother's family brought her to a family burial site in Minneapolis.
Okay.
And that's where her line went into railroading in Ohio, in that area, the Ohio Valley.
Okay.
And of course, when the Civil War came, those railroads just went sky high. Everybody either moving west, moved by railroads, or the railroads provided troop supplies for the northern forces.
Right. Yeah.
So all they did was just, just take off financially. My side went into farming, and we were all poor farmers by the time the Civil War took any property we had away from us.
Yeah.
Didn't have any slaves, but we had some decent property, but we were just poor farmers. And so that's where the two differentiated significantly. Constance is buried in an unmarked grave. And I have recently contacted the cemetery, and I said, I'm a distant cousin. What can I put a memorial, just a plaque.
Yeah.
Where she's buried.
It's something, yeah.
Remains, it's what it is. She was cremated. So it's, it's like a huge burial plot. And I said, can I put a plaque where she's buried with her name and the date, and that she was a survivor of the RMS Titanic? And the man at the cemetery says, you got to be kidding me. Seriously? And I said, yes, she was. And I gave him some links to look at. And I said, what's interesting about your cemetery is a little ways over, you have 2 more people who survived the Titanic in your cemetery. They were related to the Pillsbury family. So, of course, they were higher up in the ship than I would have been. They were very high up. But Constance, because of her railroading fortune, was a first-class passenger who survived. And the cemetery said, let us research. The owner of the plot has to allow it. And the legal owner of the plot died in the early 1970s. So it would probably be his grandchildren right now. And he said, I'll tell you what, they're not going to object to this. This is nothing disrespectful. This is honoring, and it's a great honor.
Yeah.
And so he said, we'll go ahead and do it. And if they object to it somehow, somewhere, we can put up a plaque near the road that announces where she's at and that she is that. We can do something with the plaque. And I said, okay, so what we're going to do is we're not going to do it now because they'd have to get the snow blower and work their way down to the grass. We're going to wait till the weather gets
that warm. Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're going to.
So this is ongoing right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we're going to order the monument. And what I'm going to do is open up a donation site. Anybody that wants to donate to do this, 100% of the funds go toward the memorial. And my family, some of us will fly up there for the placement of that. And anybody that contributes, will absolutely be invited. We're going to do a little booklet with everybody's name in it. Yeah. So that they have something historically correct. But we're going to honor a survivor of the ship.
Send the link to us too, so we can put it in the show notes.
Absolutely.
We can help out, because that's such a cool thing. That's so cool.
You're talking about a huge amount. Those plaques cost around $1,500. So if we can get,
every little bit helps.
Every little bit helps. And it's one of those things where I have a chance to touch a family member from that.
Yeah, no, dude, dang, that's so cool. That's amazing. That's thank you for sharing that. That's
with the project I'm involved in. I know it's not necessarily the movie, but all of you that have seen the movie understand when Officer Lowe goes back and Johan Griffith is going, is anybody out there? And he's shining his flashlight. that was Officer Lowe, and Officer Lowe was a tremendous hero. And he actually was so upset of seeing all those. He was one of the only ones to go back and see all those bodies. And it
Oh,
really affected him for a long time.
wow.
Um, they sent 3 ships to the site to recover bodies. Took them a couple of days to get out there. They recovered 350 or a little bit over 350. And for some of them, they had to bury them at sea. They were badly,
They're so bad
um,
in shape,
they were
huh?
in bad condition.
Oh
But they
man.
brought a lot back to Halifax.
Yeah.
The rich people, like the Astors and
Right.
the Strausses and things like that, I claimed their family member and had them trained down to the U.S. or over to different parts of Canada. And even the ones in England put theirs on a ship and had those remains transferred back home to the UK. Those that did not, that were third class and the families couldn't afford it, were buried in 3 cemeteries in Halifax. There are 42 still without a name. They're unknown. They have descriptions of them. And so a couple of us got together and we began to talk, and we designed Project Name Them All,
Yeah.
where we ask in the cemeteries allow us, we will go down and recover 2 small DNA samples from each entity, each body.
And that could be done now. Yeah.
It can be done now. We can use current DNA technology to get a fantastic sequence, and not only a sequence, but we can get background as to whether they're Irish or English or Scottish,
That's super
or whether they're
important.
Serbian or Italian or Turkish. You know, they may look the same
Yeah.
from a glance, but the blood would have different distinct patterns in them. And using that DNA, we have the historians, all the historians that are passenger and crew experts are saying, let me help. I'll be glad to. We've got,
Right. Yeah.
everybody was willing to jump in on this, because the only thing we can still give these people now is their name. And the only thing we can give to their families is, this is where your ancestor is buried. Come and honor him or her. And so we have presented that to the 3 cemeteries, and right now they're thinking that no, because they think the public will be against it. But they won't talk to the Titanic families. There were about 1,100 unclaimed bodies
Right.
and unidentified bodies, and we've got about 243 of those people supporting our project. All of them say, please, I'll give the DNA. Tell me what I need to do.
Yeah.
I'll definitely come out there on the day that you reveal the name on the headstone. And so, they're all in support of it. They think it's such an important project. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. There's a charity that I have played a big support in. It's called Till Valhalla, and it's similar fashion. What they do is they support people who and families of fallen soldiers, and it's to honor the name and honor the people who they didn't have any money to honor them, that unmarked graves, to pay for a plaque, to pay for a tombstone, to pay for some way to honor them. And they don't
absolutely.
stop until everybody's done. And I think that's such a cool idea. This is something I can't understand why anyone would object to that. Yeah.
A lot of pressure. They think that this may not, let them rest. They're there.
Yeah.
There's somebody up there who is totally against this project, because that person identifies the graves as her own. And no, she does not want us invading her graves. But that's something that we hope to revisit now that COVID is finally
Yeah.
going away. And, we hope to go back up to Canada and talk with the officials and
And you
say,
said
we know
that's
that COVID stopped us from having our discussion, and
gotcha. Okay.
needed to.
Yeah.
And we want to revisit it now. And I'm going to present to them the program again and see if we can't hopefully get this done. You were
Wow.
talking about the movie. One of
Yeah.
the things that's significant about the movie is that James Cameron wanted this to be as realistic as possible.
So
he engaged several historians to make sure that he had as much accurate as he could. In his design of his ship, he went to the same carpet maker that made carpet for the real ship to use their same pattern for his version, the same plateware people, the same lamp people, so that he had all those details that were original, as close to as original as he could.
and that
He
was
did.
and
Go
that was
ahead.
one of the questions is what is, in your opinion, I mean, as a Titanic historian and having so much involved, what did he get the most accurate in your opinion?
I love after I watched it the first 2 or 3 times to absorb the movie. I started looking at the details behind the Jack and Rose on the Love Boat.
Yeah.
There's a scene when Jack is climbing up to sneak in to see Rose, and there's a boy spinning a top.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The father in that scene is actually Don Lynch, who is one of the very well respected historians, Titanic historians. But that is an actual photograph from the ship taken on the ship. The young boy is Douglas Spedden, and it's his father and a third member of their party. And they're watching Douglas Spedden spin his top, and the picture was taken. So Cameron put that scene in there. Jack Thayer was 17 years old, and he and a friend were on the side of the ship as it was sinking. And Thayer says to his friend, I'm going to jump in the water and swim to one of those lifeboats. That one out there doesn't have a lot of people in it. And I'm going to try to swim out there. And if I get in the water here, when the water's, it's sinking, it's not trashing the water. And if he just walks into the water and starts swimming out, he thought he might have a better chance. So he and his friend start swimming, and he gets so far out and he turns around and his friend's gone. Never saw him again. He also gets, he says, about 100 yards away from the ship, and he turns around. And this is so vivid in my memory the first time I read it, is
Yeah.
he said the ship is halfway up out of the water.
Yeah.
Okay. And you could see the porthole lights even continuing down under the water and people running by, even though it was underwater. And I could see that in my mind so vividly. And then he turned and he went and he climbed. They pulled him into the lifeboat and he survived. So those are the kinds of things that Cameron included into his events. And here's another trick a lot of people don't know. The original Titanic struck an iceberg at 11:37 p.m.
Yeah.
and it sank at 2:20 a.m. So if you do the math and add that up, that's 2 hours and 43 minutes. Strike of the iceberg to the last sink, to the last, the final foundering, so to speak. And if you go in and time his movie from when it hits the iceberg until you see it go beneath the water, it's 2 hours and 43 minutes exactly. He made that in real time so that there was an understanding that this was a lot faster. It was very quick. The Lusitania went down quicker than that. It was about 20 minutes. And, some ships go down very quickly. Titanic took a little bit longer than others. Still, it was quick.
That is
But
I'm trying to wrap my head around that piece of trivia. I did not know about that. I have a lot of movie trivia as this show's producer, but I mean, wow, that's insane, man. That's insane. What else is it that we could talk about what worked, what didn't work, but particularly like there's also ones I think where Cameron, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I know there's he placed extras in certain scenes, like dining room scenes that were survivors, and where he had pictures in there to be able to at least give the lesser known survivors a life. Like
could have. That's one thing I'll have to look at.
yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, the man who played John Jacob Astor
Yeah,
was Eric Braeden, who was famous longtime soap opera star. My generation remembers him from Rat Patrol, an old World War II TV show in the 60s. But Eric Braeden was one of the tallest actors on the set, and he was 5'10". He played John Jacob Astor, that was 6'3". But according to how John Jacob Astor is believed to have died, his body was recovered and it was severely mangled. It is believed that when the first funnel fell, it struck him because everything was caved in and crushed. And they almost had to they couldn't recognize his face. It was so bad. They knew that because he had cufflinks with his initials on it and his name was in his coat. And plus he was carrying $3,000 in his pocket. Now, $3,000 is a good chunk of money today, but it's equivalent in about $35,000 in today's money.
Oh my gosh.
He was carrying in his pocket. So the movie shows John Jacob Astor under the dome in the grand staircase, and he's holding on to one of the poles when the staircase breaks in. And of course, by that time, the first funnel had already broken off. So that was one historical piece that, that's not a major continuity error in my book. Another error is one of the biggest scenes that he's taken a lot of flack for is the fact that it showed Officer Murdoch shoot himself.
Which didn't happen, right?
Well, there's eyewitness accounts of someone saying that an officer did shoot himself, but there's no proof that it was Murdoch. Usually when people would sail on a cruise back in those days, they would know the captain and the first officer because those were the two people in charge of the ship.
Right.
And so somebody would have said it was Officer Murdoch that shot himself rather than it was an officer, but I don't know which one. He took some literary license with that. And, the Murdoch family wasn't real happy about it because not only did he do that, but he took a bribe as well because he throws the money back to Cal Hockley.
Yeah.
And so Cameron made amends with them. I think he made a very, very nice donation to a school that they worked with, and they were very appreciative of that as an attempt to, to smooth things over with them. And so that scene is one that it fit in the movie, but historically they don't, we suspect it may have been Officer Wilde. A large group of us think it may have been Officer Wilde that did it, if anyone did, because Officer Wilde would have been the, chief officer behind all the others. And so totally could be out in left field on that, but that's what my thought is, that it might have been Chief Wilde. That was one that people have brought up many times.
That's a really interesting one. Now, the biggest question that I got when I emailed our list of fans out, and I want to get this one as the last question because it's kind of silly to me, but could Jack and Rose have fit on that door?
Cameron has fought that argument for 15 years. Mythbusters did a show, and it's on YouTube.
They did,
yes, it shows both of them fitting on it. And then he was taking so much grief after that. Just a few months ago, he came out with another special that shows no, they couldn't fit on it. So Mythbusters said, yes, we can. And the scientists that work with him said, no, they couldn't. And so it all depends on which group of experts do you believe. I have to admit, when I went to watch it Saturday, I did say, scoot over, there's room for him up there. And my wife she said, hush. She gave me very, hush. She let me know not to do that. She also told me, she said, don't you go start saying every one of the lines while they're doing the whole script, don't you go doing that. Do not do that. And there was one scene, I have to admit, when I started doing it, and all of a sudden I felt that little nudge. I get a friendly nudge first, then I get the look, and then I get
the look.
I'm smart enough to know never get past the look. The look is we're good. I did it a time or two, and she would give me the look and then she would laugh because she knows how significant of a movie this is.
This is a joy, man. This is really a joy. I appreciate it. Um, Now for the last of this, when we have a few minutes left, um, how can the fans of Movie Theater Time Machine support you? What can we do for a little bit, just to get it going? I know we got the grave link and everything else down, there. So what can we do?
Two things. First of all, my website is voyagesexplorertitanic.com. One word, voyagesexplorertitanic.com. On that, you'll see a link to the project Name Them All. You'll see a link to my book called Story, excuse me, I got the hiccups, celebrating the 20th anniversary of the 1998 expedition. That's where we raised the big piece. It's a chronological, what we did, our successes, our failures, everything else. It's going to have the link to the gravesite thing, but it also is talking about Titanic Conference 2023. In August, the 9th, 10th, and 11th, we're going to meet at the Luxor Titanic Con, is what we call it, is going to have 2 days of our expedition team. We're going to have some Titanic family members telling their family stories, but we're having one day when we have actors from the movie who are going to be there. And we're only going to have 250 fans, are going to get a meet and greet where they get to meet them, autographs, photographs, whole 9 yards, VIP packages to have dinner or to lunch with them one time. And they're welcome to sign up for that and come see us.
That would be great. Now,
Come out and do your show, and you can maybe interview a couple of the big stars.
I think we have to. We have to, my friend. I want to thank you very much for joining us in Movie Theater Time Machine. Thank you to everyone who is listening. As always, we say be good and take care of yourself, but don't be that good. So we will thank you so much, and thank you for coming on. Everybody go check this man out. I mean, this has been a fabulous story and a fabulous day. Have a great one, folks.